Hey guys, so coming on, we are going to be doing something that I've been super excited to do. This is a project for my family. So we recently went to Colorado and spent time with my family and my mom's side of the family and big birthday bash thing, so forth. That doesn't matter. But what does matter is that we played a game called Liar's Dice. And both my kids and my husband played it, which is amazing because it's hard to get all of us into a game. So I decided we needed Liar's Dice. We have one, but it's only 2 players. So I was like, what the heck? You gotta have more players. It's a lot more fun with more players. So I looked at different Liar's Dice games. Didn't find one I loved. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to make our own set. And of course resin comes into play. So I bought a set of 10 colored dice. And I am going to make the cups for that game. So essentially what the game is, you have your own color of dice. You have your cup. And you're putting your dice down and then you're peeking out what you have and making bets, and people can call your bluff or your lie. So that's essentially what this is. So I want cups that go with our colors of our dice, and essentially you don't want to be able to see through it, so we're going to do a multitude of additions to our resin to make it to where you can't see through. So we're going to be using, for each cup, we are going to be using a mica, we are going to be using a glitter, an alcohol ink, and we'll use a little bit of casting craft just to give us some definition and breaking of the color a little bit. But all those are really hard to see through except the alcohol ink, so we have to use that sparingly. So, with that said, and this is going to be like, so there's 10 colors in there. So we are going to be doing 10 different pours. So that's 10 episodes plus probably the final cleanup reveal episode. So this is like an 11-parter. So if you don't want to watch each and every one, I get it. But as you know, when you pour resin, each pour is a smidge different. I'm not exactly certain how big this is. Now, I do have a similar mold, but it is a little bent. So I'm not gonna, because I was like, oh, I could maybe do 2 pours per episode. But essentially this one is, it got, in shipment, it got definitely bent and so forth. So I'll do some tricks to try to get it back into shape. If I was doing just like a cool cup or something, the bends may not be such a big deal, but we'll use this one kind of as our basis. I'm going to just fill it with water just to give us an idea. It's not going to be exact, but it will give us an idea how much, whoo, okay, that's full, how much resin we actually need to fill the I'll lose a little bit of the water as I pick it up, but this didn't give us a good idea. Okay, so that's 100. So, you know, by the way, this water is not drinking water. I have it specifically in my craft space, but I didn't want to do it on my mold that we're getting ready to pour into, because now this is wet and that would cause issues with our resin. And I'm not going to use that cup that I used because it needs to dry. Again, could cause issues with our pouring. So we will get another cup. That one's a little dirty. Let's get this one. Let me get a paper towel. We'll just clean this water up. First, go ahead and absorb that up. And then, now we know it takes about 100 ml. So we really don't need to do 2 full ones, but I wouldn't mind. This mold came with a flower, and I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a flower in every color too, if we had enough leftover resin. So I believe, and I kind of had planned this, I'm going to do 100A, 100B, and then anything extra I have will go into, you know, our extra pour here, and if we have even more extra, we can do another dump pour into a mold. So, without further ado, I already have my gloves on, so I put them on. We've got Artist Resin, part B and A. Now, this B is starting to turn yellow. It's a little bit older, so I decided it's best to go ahead and get it used. And what better way, we're going to be doing 10 pours, and where we're going to do 100 each. That's going to help use this up. Now, when we're individually pouring into our cups here, not such a big deal about which one you pour first. It's when we pour into our mixing one that I make sure that I put B in first. So whatever one you're going to mix into, that's when I put B in first. And I'll explain that in a minute. We over poured just a smidge. So just dumping a little bit of that back in. Now these bottles were before counterculture put in like little stoppers. The stoppers really help the air not get as much access to the resin while you're storing it, but that's okay. It's gonna be fine. And yes, that one is a little yellow. We are definitely adding colorants. I am not at all concerned about that yellow. It's not going to affect this project whatsoever. If I was trying to do a crystal clear project, yes, probably would affect it. And I would probably at that point not use the yellowed one. I would make sure that I have B that is non-yellow. Now, one of my favorite best friends in resin work is my alcohol. So, rubbing alcohol. This is, if you haven't watched, if this is your first time here, I just like to explain everything quickly just so that everybody knows where we're at. If this is your second or 100th time here, you know this. This is an Equate brand bottle because I love the spout of it. However, rubbing alcohol, you can get 99% rubbing alcohol on Amazon for pretty cheap, and I get it with my subscribe and save. I've only had to order it once. I got a bunch of bottles. This takes about 2 bottles of the Amazon one to fill this. They don't have great spouts though, so I keep my Equate brand one for that, but this has Amazon rubbing alcohol at 99%. I put a little bit on a paper towel and I can wipe off my gloves because I had touched some of the B when I poured it back in, and this will be your best friend when you're working with resin and trying to make sure that it stays cleaned up and off of you. Alright, now that these have settled, I like to just check, make sure that we're pretty even. I might have a smidge more A, but that's the hardener. So biggest thing is, as long as A is a smidge more than B, you should be fine. Although it is a 1-in-1, I highly suggest follow your formulas, just because, you know, resin's a chemical you're working with. So you gotta follow the formula. Don't have to be a scientist though. So I'm putting B in first, and the reason why I've done this for several years now, hard to believe, but I've experimented with putting A in first versus B in first. And I did this after watching other crafters, and I learned that B has less it's less thick density. So with that, it kind of coats your, essentially what I've determined is it coats your mixing cup so that when A goes in, it because it's so dense. Essentially, B is coming up and around A, so that when we mix it, it's a much better mix. When I put A in first, A kind of just congeals, and then you put B in, and it essentially just sits on top of A, and then it doesn't give you as good of a mix. You will notice that I scrape my cups several times. This is a plastic stir stick, reusable. I learned at a young age. But I learned early on in my resin work from watching other artists that using a wooden popsicle stick, as great as that might be and cheap as that might be when you're first starting out, it's going to create some more bubbles for you. Just because wood is porous, it does add bubbles to your resin when you're using that. Now, it wouldn't, maybe a little bit here when you're just transferring, but the big thing is when you're mixing. You don't want to use a porous tool. Your next best friend when working with resin is going to be your silicone surfaces, your silicone tools, because guess what? Resin doesn't like to stick to silicone. So, much easier to reuse your tools and so forth. Now, this is dirty, so I'm just going to set it on my paper towel that had some of that alcohol on it, just while we get this mixed up. I will use it again here shortly, so I don't want to clean it fully. Now, a little hard to tell on video because we are zoomed in for detail, but this is a Resiner's dual mixer. Has a big paddle and a little paddle. For what we're doing today, we should be fine with the little, but I'm going to go with the big side because we are mixing quite a bit of resin. So this lifts up, comes back down, and then it has two knobs on it. It is battery operated, and it recharges. So you just have to charge it. It's got 4 lights on it to tell you where the charging is on it. So I've got 3 out of 4. If you were mixing a double batch, you could then bring the other one on. However, I can tell you the battery's getting a little bit lower. It just dropped down to 2 just by me doing that. So save our battery. You can turn it up faster to spin faster, or go slower to spin slower. Essentially, you just wanted this to mix A and B together. This has saved my wrist significantly. This has been my favorite mixer thus far. I've used other mixers, but this one thus far has definitely been my favorite. 1, no cord. Makes a huge difference. 2, silicone paddle. Another big difference. 3, the paddle is, spiral, which just gives a better mixing than a flat tool. So I will a lot of times then bring this kind of to the edge. You see the paddle slowing down because it's rubbing against the edge of the cup. I'm just trying to make sure that we get every bit of that A and B mixed together. It's already pushed all the way to the bottom, which I love, so you don't have that bottom getting not done. Silicone to silicone, not going to scrape your cup, which is another benefit. So I didn't really time this one. I've gotten to where I can pretty much tell when it's good just based on the look, essentially. I can tell there's no stringies. I can tell that it's pretty well mixed. I'll do a little hand mixing just to confirm and so forth. But it's looking really close. I used to hand mix for 3 minutes. So you imagine the wrist gets tired, gets fatigued, and it's a lot of work. Doing this has made life so much easier. So Highly recommend it. This will be linked in the show notes, or in the notes here. So definitely, if you want to pick one up, it's from Amazon by Resiners. It's fantastic. I'm sure more models will be coming. Alright, I think we're pretty good. So we're going to turn this off. I gotta tell myself to charge that when we get done. Alright, let's see. I always grab another silicone cup to put our paddle in. I hope that's gonna fit our big paddle. It does come with 2 paddles, so I can test this theory out. Yeah, it's not gonna fit in a small one, so we gotta get another big silicone cup. Which is what I was thinking. I was like looking at it and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just use this plastic cup. I don't like mixing in these. They've just got this like lip at the bottom that causes issues when you're mixing. So I will use it to put that paddle in. Essentially though, before we do that, we're going to take our stir stick and we're going to help move some of this resin off. It's already dripping. So, and that's what we want, but we're going to try to get as much of the resin off of the paddle as we can, and then we'll set it aside and let it just drip into this plastic cup that I have. Now it does have a silicone base, so if you were to drip some silicone, if you were to drip some resin on the silicone base, it's going to come off, it's going to clean up. You'll notice my surfaces, my table is covered with a large silicone mat by Counterculture DIY. I love it. I actually have 2 of them. I think their style now is like a leopard one, but I have the old style, or the original style, I guess. But it's so great because you don't have to worry about resin going everywhere. It protects your table, protects those surfaces. It's a little tedious, and probably I do more than I need, but that's just how I roll. So one of the tips that I would say is just put your cup up around it and then bring it down. That way you're not trying to thread a needle, essentially. And we'll set that aside. We'll clean the paddle in a little bit when we get to the cleaning phase. Alright, so we do have some bubbles. That's fine. They're going to work out. I'm just going to make sure that we got a good mix. I hold up my stir stick and I look at that resin pouring down. You're going to see the bubbles, but what you don't want to see is these like white, wispy, stringy type things. That means it's not mixed. So that's what we're looking for when I'm doing that, is just making sure that I'm not seeing any of those white wispies, and I'm not. So that's perfect. Okay. We are going to mix some colors. Before I put my mold up there, let's mix some colors. So, for the first one, let's do a fun color, which most of these are really kind of fun to me. We're going to start with my favorite color. We're going to go with purple. It's my favorite color, so why not? Alright, so my daughter helped me pick out all these, my youngest, because she loved Liar's Dice. This alcohol ink needs really shook, so you can tell there's a separation of the color. That tells you that it's not mixed. Alright. Sometimes a little tap on our table will help, or your hand. Just really trying to get the alcohol to mix in with the color into the ink there. And now you can tell that we don't have that separation like we did. There's still some patches, but much better. Okay, so we have a Bria shimmer alcohol. It's purple violet. I'm going to actually come up just a little bit on our desk. Ooh, something moved over there. Okay, so we have that one. for our alcohol ink, we have a galactic grape for our mica. That's by Counterculture DIY. And then a Hocus Pocus glitter, also by Counterculture DIY. I also bought this from Counterculture. They sell those. So those are the 3 that we're going to be adding to our colors. Okay, so glitter will not stain your mold or stain your silicone at all. Okay, it should wipe out of a silicone thing. However, glitter is staticky and it does like to stick in the silicone. So take that with what you will. If you are fine spending extra time cleaning your silicone, then by all means mix your glitter in a silicone. This is our cast and craft. I'm just shaking it and trying to get it kind of ready. The mica powder, very same. It will not stain your silicone mold, but it can be a little bit challenging, especially with this deep hue that we are going with. So those are things to factor. Alcohol ink will absolutely stain your silicone mold. There's no doubt in my mind that that will get stained. So I don't suggest using alcohol ink for your silicone mold. It's just one of those things that I wouldn't suggest doing because it's going to stain it for sure. Now, I am probably going to need a couple of the mica mixed just because these aren't that big. These are little plastic cups. They're disposable, so I'm going to just toss them when we're done. But they will probably, I probably need 2 of the mica for sure. I might have to mix a little bit of the others, but mica's a little bit trickier. I want to get that one as close to possible as the same. So I'm going to mix them together here now. Now, I'm going to take a heat gun, just hit our resin just a little bit, pop some of these bubbles. I hit the bottom of it just to try to shift some of those bubbles up. You can also pop it down on your surface gently. That brings some of those up. Once we mix this with our colorants, it's not going to be an issue. Those bubbles are going to easily just disappear. They're going to get lost. They're going to get popped. They're going to get lost in our colors. Now, I'm going to try to attempt to get about the same amount in 3 of these. I might not do a second one. I might just do 1. And that would be fine. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of scrape to get that to all want to come out. It's a little hard because your stick has a lot of length and there's not a lot of room for me to hold the stick because there's resin all over it. So I'm holding it at the tip and it's a little bit bendy, but that's okay. One of my tricks is that we just, brush it onto that cup and then we go into that cup. It's like one of those things back and forth. Kinda. It's actually gonna work out better this way. For sure. For sure, for sure, for sure. So I'm trying to just get as much as I can. Now you do have to be somewhat conscious of your time. You don't have all the time in the world because this is going to start curing itself. It's already, once you've mixed A and B, it is starting that chemical process. So you've got not a ton of time to play around. You got to kind of get it together. Now I'm going to spread this one out just a smidge. I want a little bit more for the casting craft and a little less for the glitter, is what I decided, which is why I did that. I want about the same for my alcohol ink, I think, as I do my mica. Maybe just a smidge less. I'm going to do this one as my glitter. I'll make them about the same. Oops, that was goofy. Just poured it on myself. Good deal. Now this is a leveling table. I do need to check it though, because I don't think I checked it recently when I put it up here. Just make sure. For some reason this guy back here is okay. Yeah, it's pretty close. Leveling table is good to have just so that you know that your surface is level when you do your pour into the mold. Alright, so the smallest one I'm going to do is our casting craft. That I'm going to put about 3 to 5 drops in, if we can get them to come out. This gets really challenging. It's actually trying to come out of the nozzle area, or like around the nozzle. It's not wanting to come out the nozzle. Let's take a little tool and wondering if we kind of like clogged up in there for some reason. So I say just shake it good. I might just end up using my glove. I just have to switch gloves. I might need a longer tool to go in there and get the clog out. Just not wanting to. Or if I can take, yeah, let's just take the lid off. Okay. It's not going to take much. So, just taking the lid off. I'm going to do that. It's not exact science, but somewhat science. I'll clean that up here in a little bit. Alright. Rubbing alcohol is going to be our best friend, like I said, because our glove is now dirty. And we don't want to have a mess bigger than what we have. So you could swap your glove out if you wanted. I'm just going to do a quick wipe down with some rubbing alcohol on my glove on a paper towel, and that gets most of it. Okay, alcohol ink coming at us. My watch decided to unclip. I think it's because my glove is bumping it. Okay. Oh, okay. Challenge number 2. This is how crafting goes, you know. Challenge number 2 is getting our alcohol ink open. Put several drops in that. We might end up adding more, but that's for now. And then I'm opening the bigger side of my shaker because I'm going to need quite a bit. So I don't want to sit there and shake that. I just want to get it done. And then for this one, these are little silicone sticks. Got them at Counterculture DIY. I don't know if they still sell them, but they have been best friends of mine. Now, I always put in our additives after I pour the resin, because if you put the mica in first, it's going to poof up when you add your resin. Whereas if we put the mica on top, it's not going to poof as much, and it's going to allow you to mix the wet ingredient of the resin in with the dry of the mica. Now, I can feel just a smidge of warmth on the outside of this cup. That just is telling me, hey, you know, you might want to get your groove on and get moving. Okay. Just because that means it is starting to do what it's supposed to. Now, with micas, you do want to make sure that you get it mixed all the way to the bottom, so that you're not ending up with a bottom that's thinner in colorant than your top. Same is going to go with your glitter. You're going to want to really mix in. Think of it as your wet and dry ingredients if you're a baker, or if you've baked before. You want those to mix. You don't want somebody to bite into a dry piece of flour. Same concept. So that's pretty good for the glitter. I think especially as it mixes with the others, like somebody's not going to be able to cheat looking through that thick of glitter. Now, the alcohol ink loves to stay on the surface, so it does take a little bit of, you know, extra stirring. And this is another reason why I like to mix my resin with a mixer first, because look at how much I'm having to use my wrist to get these colors mixed in. So if I've already used my wrist for mixing the resin itself, it's a little exhausting, a little more exhausting. Now this is definitely thinner, so we have to be aware of that, that we don't want to, the way we layer this, we have to make sure that there's not going to be a massive patch of like the alcohol ink, because you can see through that a lot more, even though we put quite a bit in there. And I might add just a smidge more, but I wanted to get this white mixed, this casting craft. Now casting craft, essentially that's kind of a liquid or a paste going into the liquid, so that's what you got to be aware of when you're mixing it, is just making sure that you get that paste fully mixed in. So, and I'm not speeding up the video or anything. If this is your first time, I show you the whole process from start to finish. I'm not speeding anything up. I don't edit. I don't cut out. What you see is literally what I'm doing. It's something that from the beginning I really wanted to instill. I did a few in the beginning where I would speed it up and give you both options where you could watch it on fast or slow, but I've decided that, honestly speaking, if you want to speed it up, you can, or if you want to skip a part, you can. I'm going to give you real time, because when we watch these quick videos, we think, oh, we can do that in like 10 minutes. That's not reality. Okay? Every pour I count on at least a minimum of an hour. I tell my family I'm going in the craft space for a minimum of an hour. Okay? Hitting these just with a little heat, you see those bubbles on the surface are getting popped. That's perfect. That's what we want. Alright, density wise, well, that fell off the table, and that's fine. Density wise, this is going to be your thinnest, your next thinnest, next, and this should be your thickest, essentially, density wise. These two kind of go almost hand in hand, I would say, especially with as much mica as I put in there. So when you're pouring, you want to think about that. If you want this to have the most effect, it should be the first layer. But I also don't want too much of this in my first layer, because remember, if we do too much, we're going to be able to see through it. And the bottom of your cup is going to be the most important with Liar's dice, because your dice are going to be at the bottom. So I'm going to just literally, I'm just doing that circle of it, and that's it of that. I'm going to do very little glitter at this stage too, for the same exact reason. I just want a little bit in there to give some shine, but then I really want my mica and my casting craft to be these first few layers. Okay, so now I'm going to really give it quite a bit, and if you notice, I'm pouring relatively slow. That is to prevent bubbles. That is to help prevent those bubbles forming as that resin falls to the sides. So it's hard to see on camera, but here in person I can see that the resin is moving down the sides, especially with that dark mica. I can see where it's falling. Now we're falling a lot in the back here, so I'll probably turn this in a little bit just to help give us, just based on where I'm pouring, that's where the resin is flowing a little bit more towards. So then I'm going to do some casting craft, because that's going to give us some color dimension. I'm going to go ahead and pivot us. Pivot. For those who don't know, that's a Friends reference. Okay. Another relatively small amount of our alcohol ink. It's really cool because you can start to see the layers on the side. It's really fun to see that. With the glitter, I am mixing it every time before I pour, because the glitter does like to just sink to the bottom the more it sits. So by me mixing that, it's allowing that glitter to get more mixed in, essentially. And the idea is we layer, it's gonna push these colors into the other colors. The weight of it is gonna start to push that down, so that it gives us not just a single layer to layer ratio. It's gonna start to kind of push itself within. And we're gonna probably help manipulate that just a smidge too, because I really want those layers to meld, essentially, not be straight. I don't want it to be a straight on layer. I'm glad I mixed as much as I did, because I don't think 100 would have sufficed it, to be honest with you. As much as it's taking. Oh, the sides of this are so pretty. I wish I could show y'all. Maybe at the end I can take it off the camera off the stand and show you, because it is really pretty. We're getting to the top, so it's just, again, nice slow, you know, pour in. We don't want to go too fast. When we go too fast, it does lock in bubbles. It creates bubbles and locks in bubbles. I don't want that. I want to go as slow as possible to not have our bubbles mix. Now, for the top layer, because you will see this layer when we're playing the game, because our cups are going to be flipped the same way that we're working it, I'm going to kind of just make a different little design on the bottom. Little swirls, you know, giving us some of this, and I'm going to manipulate that to where it changes the look. Don't need a ton, but just give me a little bit in there. So, no rhyme or reason, if you see on that part. I was thinking about trying to stick something down here and manipulate the resin on the sides, but as I'm looking at it, I really kind of like the look that it's giving. And I don't know that I want to do that. Now, I am going to do this a couple times, or a few times. One, that's going to help any bubbles that are in there to try to surface. It's also making the resin do kind of what I want it to do, in the sense of it's... Okay, we're going to take y'all on a ride. Okay, bear with me. Take you off the stand here. Okay, well, I stopped my video when I did that, so let's... Here we are again. I'll merge these together. But look at how that is forming our layers. Isn't that beautiful? So by me popping it down a couple times, it's making these unique lines and causing some to sink and some to rise, and it's giving this a really cool look. That's really what I wanted to go for, and I don't think that I'm going to do anything because of the curvature of this. mold right here, it would be hard to get something down in here without scratching our mold. And then you're going to see that scratch mark on every single piece you do after. Okay. All right. We're going on a journey again. Coming back up on our stand here. And I'll get y'all zoomed back in because, you know, hey, little journey. But you had to see that. It just looks so cool. All right. For the top, I am going to take just a silicone brush that has kind of a nice tip on it, and I am just going to go from the outside, because this is where our bubbles like to collect, and then I'm going to swirl it in and kind of swirl it back out. Then I am going to hit this with a little bit of heat. The other thing the heat's going to do is it's going to help some of that move along as well. So I'm just going to hit a little bit of heat. Nothing too crazy, but it's going to help the resin layers kind of shift some more and give us that look that we're going for. Also at the top, just trying to hit any bubbles that might be trying to come up. And then honestly, that baby is done. We're not going to do anything further. It's going to do its thing. I don't want to add more heat, because if we add more heat, we're going to speed up the process, and potentially you could create a situation where you have a flash cure. We have so much color added in here, so many things that have been put in it. If we go too crazy, we will create that flash cure. So you just got to be very careful and aware of that. All right. So for our flower, I want to give us a little bit of a yellow center. I was looking for a mica that I wanted, and I found one. I'm just going to take a little bit of this mica, and I'm going to dab it where I want just a little bit of yellow color. Okay, nothing crazy, just a little bit there. And then essentially we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to pour and layer. So I'm going to put a little bit of this. Now we don't have to worry about, you know, can somebody see through it, because this isn't part of the game. This is just a topper. It does fit on the top of the cup. So if I wanted to store it that way, I could put the dice in the cups and store it with the flower on top. Or have it be a decoration piece that sits on a tray that has the dice in each cup, and the cups are out on the tray, and you just grab the tray and play a game. That's kind of a cool idea. That would be fun. Look at those bubbles that are forming there. Now, I am being a little bit aware that these are probably getting close to needing to be in a mold or done, just because they're feeling really sticky. So I'm a little bit quicker and haphazardly, you know, putting our layers in. Not a big deal, because this is just kind of a fun extra, shall we say. But just note that that's why I'm less like, oh, we gotta go slow, we gotta do this. This has really changed a lot too. I might swing that around again, swirl it around again. I'm just gonna hit this with a little heat, because I'm seeing all those bubbles trying to surface, and I just want to get them like popped. I was like, I don't want to end up trapping them and them come up later. So if we just pop them now, then we don't have to worry about them. For this last layer, I'm just pour right in the center. And then it will come up the way it needs to. Now, I have learned with my molds to not full on fill them. So like this, I haven't fully filled because I know that that's going to create a ring at the top that I'm going to have to clean up and take off. So I've learned like where to stop, essentially. Not always, but to kind of help myself out, I have learned to pause in a spot so that, okay, so like this one is probably good there. I kind of want to do like, bring it in. Probably should have cleaned my brush each time, but that's okay. Now it's going to move some here in a few minutes, but that's okay. All right, now I still have some. So we are going to grab a mold to do just a dump pour into, okay? It's just going to be one of those that's going to end up with a lot of colors and a lot of fun. Is that one stuck together? Did they tape that? Oh, that one, something's going on with that. Okay. Let's, oh, this one's really kind of dirty too. Lord have mercy. Alright, let's get a little bit of rubbing alcohol. So rubbing alcohol won't hurt too bad because it's going to dry really fast. So I'm just taking a small paper towel just to rub inside. It's actually going to help with any bubbles too that want to try to go in the bottom. And since this is a dump pour, I'm not going to be particularly careful with it. I'm going to try to get to where y'all can see this. Okay. So with this, I'm basically just trying to get the resin that we have used. Alright, I'm not worried about where the resin lands. I'm not worried about anything except getting as much of the resin out as I can. And not wasting it, essentially. Now this stick is, I'm using the pointed end, which is harder to when you're doing this part. So I am going to grab the glitter stick and finish scraping this cup because the square side is easier for getting all the resin at the bottom of these cups. And again, if you do like that, you can get a pretty decent glob, and then it's a lot easier on yourself. And it's not going to be perfect, but we did pretty good. And it's definitely getting tacky, which again, just is the sign that the resin is doing what it's supposed to do. It's not that you did anything wrong. It is that it is doing its chemical reaction, and it is creating that chemical reaction and going to harden up, essentially. Okay, this one has a same direction, the square end. I was like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, y'all. At this point, when I hit this point, I'm like, oh, gotta go, and I get a little bit like, ah. But it's okay. We got this. That's the other thing with resin. Like, yes, you're on a time constraint, but just if you amp yourself too much up, then that's when mistakes happen. So you just gotta, like, hey, we're good. It's doing what it's supposed to, and I've got this. Even if you don't feel like you do. Like, my glove is so covered in resin right now that it's not even funny. And it's driving me a little bit crazy, but that's okay. I'm gonna have to plan our next color that we pour to correlate with our like blue or teal or something. Should be my next color. That's how it's going to dictate. I can't remember. I think I have a pink too, which would look good. Maybe doing the teal and then the pink, just so that the extra can go in this dump mold. Probably good that my big one was giving me issues, because the other mold I had that was like stuck together is bigger than this one. Okay, that is pretty well cleared out. The last thing I want to do is I want to grab my paddle off of here. Oops. And there's enough. Why aren't you coming down? Huh. And I'm covered in resin, so it's really hard, but there we go. So the paddle doesn't have much in here, but I was going to see if there is any. It's so little. I'm probably going to just let that cure. This is going to be my paddle cup. I'll just let this resin cure in here. And there's such little that I'll just each time let it cure in there. That way I'm not worried about cleaning it. Okay. Let's wipe off my gloves because we've got a hot mess. So before I go grabbing my heat gun and everything, just wipe my gloves off. And we're going to grab our heat gun, hit all these with just a smidge of heat. And then we got to do the fun part. Okay, the part that I do not enjoy, which is the cleanup. I struggle with the cleanup side. Another reason why to use disposable cups on those, because guess what? So look, you can see when you're heating the resin, it starts to get more fluid, which is why I was hitting the side of our cup mold, because it becomes more fluid, it moves around, helps those resins, those layers not be so defined. It helps them float between each other, meld between each other, without mixing and making a murky, gross, you know, kind of color, essentially. Okay, so this baby is very pretty, but we're gonna help her out a little bit more, maybe. This one I'm gonna go outward, but I don't know. Seems that the colors, the white has definitely sunk on us, so it's not giving us as much of a swirl that I would love it to. But if we add a little bit, maybe. It's not really, but it is what it is. So, what are you gonna do, you know? Alright, so our dump pour, not really anything you can do about it. It's just gonna be a hot mess until it gets done. So with it, I feel confident that I can like pick it up, wipe underneath it. You don't have to wipe off your silicone because this should just peel right on off. When it's on this black mat, I kind of like to wipe it off just if I can, because it does come up easier in that sense. Alright, this is our cup that I'm not worried about, so I'm going to set it to the side. Okay, I want to move these out of the way until I am done cleaning everything. So I'm going to take anything that needs cleaned off of this tray. Oh, that was like a little slippery in my hands. So, probably not going to try to lift up our cup. I'm just going to move this tray off to the side for the few minutes that we're going to do the cleaning. I have a relatively flat space over here that I'm going to put it on. Shouldn't have too much effect on it while it's sitting there. So I have this paper towel that I've been using that has alcohol on it already that I used to wipe my gloves with, right? So I'm going to use it to do the first like layer off of these sticks essentially. Now, I don't take my gloves off until I'm done with cleaning because we've got lots of resin to clean up. Now, you don't have to necessarily wipe your tools off that are silicone, and you don't necessarily have to wipe out your cups that are silicone, except the ones that didn't have A and B mixed. So this was one of them, A or B, that wasn't mixed in, and this is the other one of A or B that wasn't mixed together. So those you're going to have to clean no matter what. Now, these I'm not cleaning. We're stocking them. They're gonna be tossed. It's just part of it. Paper towels for cleanup is my best friend with the rubbing alcohol because it allows me to get all these clean. The plastic stir sticks that I have, if you don't clean them, they leave a funky film on them. So I just clean them. Same thing with my silicone sticks. Honestly speaking, it's just better for me to clean them because then there's no funky film. Now you'll see there's like color on these because they've gotten stained as I've used them. That I'm not so worried about. It is what it be, you know? But there's not resin on there that's gonna then interfere the next time you use it. The nice thing about the alcohol too, the rubbing alcohol, is that it dries really fast, especially on your silicone things. So we wipe those off. These will be dry by the time I'm done and I can put them away. Now, I wiped all those. Those are pretty clean. I might hit them one more time, but this still probably has resin on it that I wouldn't just do a clean one, but I can start getting a lot of the sticky resin off of some of their surface. Now the paddle part is silicone. This is not. So any resin up here is going to stick. So you gotta be careful of that. They warn you in the instructions, which I read. So then again, because this is full of uncured resin, I can just take that same paper towel and use it to wipe it out. It just gets us a starting point. It's not the be all and all. Now this one, we could leave it. I've seen other artists do it where they just leave it like this, or they flip it upside down and leave it. I've done all the above. This is what works for me. So take that as you will. You can experiment and determine what works for you. You know, maybe sitting here cleaning the stuff like I am doesn't work for you, and that's fine. Doesn't have to. But this is what I have found works for me in all the time that I've been doing resin. I found that this is the best way for me to get everything cleaned up correctly. So that's why I go with it. Just one of those things. I've experimented and I found what is my ideal. And my ideal may not be your ideal. And that's okay. So don't let people tell you, oh, it has to be done this way. Watch other artists, experiment, and find what works best for you. I find though that I scrape my cups so much that even if I leave that to cure, it's so thin of an amount that it just leaves a layer of film that I then have to end up wiping out anyway, and it's harder to wipe out than it is to clean it while it's not cured. So that's why I do what I do. I'm just going to keep shoving those paper towels in those cups for now. So the tools are really good. Now I'm going to do these cups one more time. I'm just making sure to go round and round in the crease down there. And then again, it looks wet, because it is. rubbing alcohol makes it wet. But it is clean, and it's going to dry up just fine. This one actually had some film from probably another pour that I didn't clean it very well. So I was making sure I cleaned it really good that time. This one is even probably pretty good. Probably just wipe that a little bit. I'll probably wipe it one more time. This one's still pretty sticky. So the rubbing alcohol is breaking down the chemical. Now, I'm not a scientist, but this is just what I have figured out in working with the resin. The rubbing alcohol breaks that down, essentially. Do not wash your cups in the sink. Uncured resin will get in your drains, and you will have a plumbing nightmare. Never have I done that, nor do I ever plan to do that. Basically, though, let's learn from other artists who have done that and say, you know what? We don't need to experiment. We don't need to test it. That's how I feel about that. Okay, I'm going to use the clean side. I've split to a glove, which is fine because we're at the end here. So, now a lot of times I'll just put my clean tools in here to finish drying, essentially. They're pretty well dry. And before I start the next round, I will move those out of the way. I'll put them all away, essentially, before we use them. Now, a few things. My lid is not on right, so we're going to get that on there. Now, this, I had an issue with it, so I am going to just try to clean that lid up just a smidge while I have gloves on. Look at all that. It was like dried in there. It's probably dried in the lid too, but I don't know if I can easily get that. There's some. I think at one point I didn't put it on well, or there was a bunch squeezed out in the lid or something. But now it goes on much better. I'll wipe the outside just to make sure when I touch it to put it away that it doesn't get all over me. Now, the last one is our casting craft, and then I'm going to show you, I'm going to bring our pieces back over, we'll look at them one more time, and then we'll cover them with a bug net, essentially, so that no unwanted friends arrive in there. Alright, let's see what I want to use. I think this is going to be what I want to use. Yeah, I see how this is working. So I might need my straight ones, but let's just clean this up a little. Shall we? Shall we? Shall we? Shall we? Because there's plenty of casting craft in there. I just want to be able to access it. They've got like a smaller tube within the tube, the spout, basically. That's where it's supposed to come out. It's to prevent a big glob coming out, which I totally appreciate and get. But the problem is that it's blocking any of it to come out. So essentially, I'm just trying to take my tweezers and unclog that little spout hole that we got going. So I'm just slowly twisting that up in there. I'm probably making this side be a little bit bigger. Oh look, I can see my tweezer now. I don't want to put my finger on it like that. Yeah, I think that's gonna help us. I can now see all the way through it, so that makes it a whole lot better. Okay, I think going forward that will be better. I think it was just ultimately was clogged. So now these gloves, normally I would try to save my gloves, but clearly this one's not going to be saved. This black one also is just covered, so I'm going to just decide to let them go. I'll throw this around, which is fine, but let me bring our beauties over here. Oh. Dangerous part about moving things is that you could drop it. You know, something could happen in the process of bringing it over. So I would just caution doing that. I wouldn't normally do it. It's just that I wanted to show you all the cleaning process. This, I am going to manipulate it one more time. And then I'm going to resign that it is the way it is. Okay. That's just how it's going to be. Same thing with this one. Oh, there's a big old bubble there. We're going to hit it with just a smidge of heat here in just a minute. And this is why a lot of times I will craft at night so that I go to bed and I don't keep coming back and like playing with it and being like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Just because it needs the time to rest. It needs the time to cure. And if you keep messing with it, you're messing with the curing process, which in turn can make your piece fail. So, and I know I spun that around, but now I manipulated it with the heat gun. It's fine. And I'm just trying to make sure all the bubbles on the edges are popped, essentially. It's a little bit hard too because some of these glitter pieces have come up to the edges and they almost look like bubbles. And I'm like, oh, is that a bubble? And then I'm like, oh no, it's glitter. There's some bubbles around the edges so that when a layer comes, it's gonna have a spongy exterior side. The other thing we can do, especially with this one, is we can just hit it with some rubbing alcohol. And that's going to pop those little bubbles that are down there. Now, I'm not really hitting these a little bit. But if I hit them with as much as I'm hitting this piece, it would not cure. Now, a couple little spritz, that's fine. That's not going to do anything. But the way I was really hitting that, it could make the top not cure as well. We're going to be adding another layer there, so I'm not worried about that, essentially. That's why I went that way. Okay. So again, why I craft in the evening time a lot of times is because, essentially, I cover these, I go to bed, I'm not touching them, I'm not hovering over them, I'm sleeping. I used to wake up in the middle of the night and check my things. I'm much better now. It's going to do its thing. It's going to do what it's going to do. And I just leave it alone and let it do its thing. And that's the beauty of resin art, right? But I will tell you that I have, upon occasion, found like a little gnat or fly in my work. So, a little net cover from, you know, like that you would use at a barbecue or something, is your best friend for this part. This will protect it. Although, the way I have my table positioned right now, there we go. So there we are. That is our first of many of these pours. I'm excited to see how this one comes out. So next episode, we will demold and we will pour the next cup, which is exciting. All right, so stay tuned. The unmolding is the best part. Just saying. All this work for that few seconds of unmolding. Glorious. So stay tuned, and I will see you guys back again soon. Bye.